Hi, I'm Phil Castle. I spent my career working at a college, and I was there for 32 years. Of those 32 years, I spent 26 of those years teaching, and out of those 26 years, 20 of them was full time. So I worked full time teaching students on how to develop and create e-learning and mobile learning and a variety of other skills needed to be an e-learning professional. One of the topics that I want to share with you right now, and it's called DOPE. I was kind of pushing this process called DOPE development, and what I mean by DOPE is develop once, play everywhere. So if you're at the point where you're comfortable with Captivate and you're wondering about what should I do with my skills, how do I improve on this, how do I get better at e-learning, I want to bring up one suggestion, and that is to look at how can you reuse your skills. How can you do something and then actually reuse the content that you've developed elsewhere and in other situations? So I want to take you through the process of what I do with my students called DOPE, where you develop once, but you're able to play everywhere. So we want to look at what we did, and we talked about using Adobe Animate. This is our primary go-to tool. And with Adobe Animate, you can do a lot. And some things you can do, of course, is you can create a SWIFT file, and SWIFT, of course, is the old Flash files that you often see, originally called small web files. But not only that, you can then package a program using Adobe Animate into an APK. So this is the native file format for the Android mobile device. You can also package as an IPA. So I take the exact same file and then I can repackage it for IPA. And then you have BlackBerry. Now you have to do a couple of extra steps outside of Animate to create the bar file, but it will work. You can also create a Windows exe file, an executable. And so this is a program that can run on a Windows machine even if the machine is locked down, because you don't have to install it, it just runs. We also have the ability to make an APP file. So this is a Mac application, so you can run it on a Mac. And of course, we can create an Air application, and with the Air application you have one file. It's an Air file, and it runs both on Mac and PC. So it's very consistent in the layout. You just have to make sure the person has Air on their workstation. But not only that, you can also create HTML5 animations. You can do high-def video, 4K video, 360 VR animations, as well as virtual reality panoramas. And you can even create animated GIFs with it, and other media formats such as SVG and OAM. And OAM is a format that you can bring into Adobe Captivate. And same with the HTML5 animations, and I made several tutorials on HTML5 animations and how you bring it into Adobe Captivate. So this is a wonderful tool that you can use. Before we do that, look at what language is used. Typically, if you're making a Swift mobile or working on the desktop, you can use ActionScript. If you're using HTML5 or VR or the panorama, you're going to use JavaScript. So you might think, well, do I have to learn two different languages? So they are different. ActionScript and JavaScript are different, but they're very similar. There's a lot of overlap. And if you learn one language, you will know the other language automatically. So if I take a look at a couple of sample projects, here's one that I have. This is a VR project, and this actually is looking at the bridge of one of the Star Trek Enterprise. And if I bring this up in the browser, here's what's different. On a typical Captivate file, you can't animate. However, with the VR inside of Adobe Animate, we can actually animate. So I can pan around and look all around. And you can see I have an animation on the screen. I have the dots going. I have this control panel also lit up. So I can put animations anywhere I want within this particular file. So that's a very neat little thing that you can do. And that's a standard VR file that we have with Adobe Animate. I'm going to go over to this one. Now this is a bobblehead fill. I have all these sayings, and you shake the app on your phone, and a random saying will appear in here. The bobble only appears if you're running on the desktop. If you're on a mobile device, this button actually disappears. So this button is just here. When you can see it when it's on the desktop. Like I said, if you put this on your phone, this will disappear, and so you just shake it, and my head actually bobs and moves around. And if I double click on it, you can see this is the animation of my head bobbing. So that's where bobblehead comes from. And then the saying would appear shortly after that. So the program in the language that it has looks something like this. And I'm not going to go into the coding for this, but you can see that this is actually making or activating several native applications. So the file that we create is going to be able to talk to the device. So the ActionScript language can talk to all the hardware devices on the mobile device, whatever is being played on, and it's kind of easy to do stuff like that. If I want to go ahead and package this, I just have to click here, and then I can choose. This is my Air settings for this. Right now is set for the desktop. And so it's going to create an AIR file, and of course you need to have a certificate. And here's the really neat thing: if you don't have a certificate made up, you can click on create and create a self-signing certificate right here within Adobe Animate, so you don't have to go out to a third party and pay about $125 for a signature. You can actually create one right inside here. Now over here on the right hand side, you can see here are the different types of outputs that I can have. So that was for the desktop. If I went for Android, so I've just chosen Air for Android. And now if I come down to my Android settings, so there's my APK file. And under the development, again, if I have a P12 certificate, if I don't have one, I can click here and create a P12 certificate, put in the password. Also, I can, if I had a phone attached to my computer, I could actually click on this, and it would, after it gets packaged, it will automatically install it on my computer, and it would also run it on the phone. So this is really nice for debugging. Here's the different sizes of icons and any special permissions that I want for it, and I can go into the manifest file afterward and add more. Now that was for Android. What I can also do is I can come down here for iOS. Very similar to what we had before. Here's the additional files I'm going to be importing. For the development, I need a certificate. This particular certificate, there's no create button, because with this certificate, what you have to do is get it from the Apple website. Same with the mobile provision file. You have to get that from the Apple website as well. Here's all the icons, and there's a lot more icons needed for when you're working with an Apple product. So you have to go in here and then make your icon, and you just browse to it and then insert it in here, and you'll see a preview of your icon in here. So kind of similar to what we saw before. I'm going to go into the publish settings, and here we have all these different publish settings. We're not ready to do anything with HTML5, but what we can do is down here, that makes an exe file, that makes a Mac projector. Here's my animation if I want to create an animation to bring it into Captivate. I just have to click on that. So this is how I can create, from one file, I can create multiple outputs. Now, this particular file here, this is the last one I'll show you as an example. This one is an HTML5 file. This is done with Canvas, and you can see here on the tab, it actually has the name Canvas. So this is going to be produced as an HTML5 file. And if I look at the ActionScript inside here, it basically is almost the same as what you saw before, but it is a little bit different. Every frame that I have here, where I have some coding in here, every frame that I have is unique. It's a local file. Up here at the top is my global script. This means my whole project, my whole file can actually capture or access this. And so here is this getRandom function is actually accessible from the whole project. I can access it everywhere. But the coding, if you look at it, looks a lot like ActionScript. ActionScript and JavaScript are the same. There's a few differences, but for the most part, it's the same. So this is why, when I was teaching my students, I was using Adobe Animate, because between Adobe Animate and the coding that we're doing with JavaScript, we could use that in web pages, we could use it in Animate, and there's a few other tools that we could also use JavaScript in. But if you learn JavaScript, it's very easy to learn other languages. I found that ActionScript and Android, or when making an Android application using Java, there's a lot of overlap there. And so once you've learned JavaScript, you can now start to develop in a variety of places. So if you're at the point where you want to look at improving your e-learning skills, I would highly recommend take a look at Adobe Animate and start learning how to use this as a tool, because it will help you enhance and kind of break through any kind of barriers you may find that you have inside of Adobe Captivate. It's a wonderful tool, and you can do a lot with this tool.